Hello, I'm Chen Kiefer, and today I will be persuading you as to why you should support physician-assisted suicide here in Indiana. Imagine having a lingering cough and going to your doctor, only to be told that you have stage 4 terminal lung cancer. You are only given a few months to live, and treatment will likely be futile. Not only would this information be devastating, but it would also leave you up at night wondering how your family will move on in your absence. You choose to try to fight it with chemotherapy and radiation treatment, but the cancer has spread to other organs and dying becomes inevitable. The pain and suffering is unbearable, but you go through this because you have no other choices. Your family also suffers as you deteriorate and become more of a burden on them as you slowly die before their eyes. It is a helpless and hopeless situation for everyone involved. If only there was an alternative to this scenario. Well, in only 8 states in the U.S., physician-assisted suicide is an option where Americans are given the right to choose if they want to end their pain and suffering early so they may die with dignity. I am credible because I have personally seen someone suffer through this exact scenario. I believe that they should have had the option to end their life on their own terms, without pain and suffering, through the use of physician-assisted suicide. However, they could not, because it's currently illegal here in Indiana. As college students, we all have likely known someone who has struggled with cancer or some other incurable disease. Therefore, it is important to be knowledgeable in this subject so that we can advocate for the right to die with dignity here in the state of Indiana. Physician-assisted suicide should be legalized in every state of the U.S. because it is a basic human right. People should be able to choose to die with dignity, and there are safeguards in place to ensure it is reserved for those who have either no hope of survival or no hope of finding a cure for whichever disease they might have. Now that I've introduced the topic of physician-assisted suicide, I will define what it is and explain why it should be a basic human right. Emmanuel et al. 2016 defines physician-assisted suicide as, quote, when the physician provides medication or prescription to a patient at his or her explicit request, with the understanding that the patient intends to use the medication to end his or her life, end quote. The right to choose whether a person lives or dies when given a terminal diagnosis is a basic human right and should not be the government's decision in this choice. Taking away the right to choose limits personal liberty and goes against what America is even founded on, that freedom. If you are on the fence about the morality of this situation and giving someone the right to choose to die, perhaps the testimony of a man of the name Noel Conway will change your mind. Noel Conway was 2 months into his retirement when he was diagnosed with motor neuron disease in November of 2014. And was given 2 to 5 years to live at the time of his testimony. He was in his 5th year of the disease, and at this point, he had lost his ability to walk. He had to be assisted in all of his daily activities and had difficulty breathing on his own, often having to rely on a ventilator for up to 20 hours a day. He described his situation as, quote, a condemned man awaiting his execution on a date yet to be determined. As his condition continued to deteriorate, he became more and more aware of what would happen, and it took away his right to enjoy his last days, because he did not know when that would be. So he and his wife lived in constant fear until the end. During his final days, Conway and his wife got involved in the Dignity in Dying movement because he believed that, quote, it is possible to change the laws so that vulnerable people can be protected, whilst at the same time allowing those who are terminally ill, who are fully aware of what they are doing, to control and manage the final days of their life, humanely and with dignity. It has to be a fundamental human right. Now that I've talked about why the right to choose physician-assisted suicide should be a basic human right, I will talk about the importance of dying with dignity. According to deathwithdignity.org, as of 2019, there are physician-assisted dying statutes in 8 states, including California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. and this has been legal in Montana since 2009. These statutes allow terminally ill adults to request a prescription for medication to end their lives so they may die in a more peaceful and controlled manner. These statutes also act as a guideline for the physician and patient to follow in this process, and include safeguards to protect them both. There are concerns with such legislation from those who attest that physicians are under Hippocratic oath and do no harm. However, family practice doctor Sarawati Shetri feels as though needless suffering is more painful for families. He goes on to say, quote, although oath says do no harm, following prolonged suffering is doing more harm by not providing peace. This point leaves the term harm up for debate and interpretation, and could have different meanings for different people depending on their backgrounds and who they are. Because this is quite literally a decision between life and death, it is one that should not be taken lightly or made with haste. Therefore, there are several safeguards in place for those making the decision whether or not they should live or die through the Death with Dignity Act. These safeguards include the following. The candidate must be an adult resident of a state where this law is in effect, one of the states mentioned prior. They must be mentally competent and able to communicate their health decisions. Their request must be made orally on 2 separate occasions, no less than 15 days apart. Then they must make the request in writing to their physician, which must be verified by 2 different witnesses. They must be diagnosed with a terminal illness and given less than 6 months to live, which must be verified by 2 different physicians. The prescribing physician and a consulting physician must determine whether the patient is capable of administering this themselves. If either physician believes that the patient has a psychiatric or psychological disorder, then the patient must be referred for a psychological examination. The prescribing physician must inform the patient of alternatives such as comfort care, hospice care, and pain control. The prescribing physician may require the patient to notify his or her next of kin of the prescription request. So now that I have talked about the safeguards of the Death with Dignity statutes, I will tell you how you can support this cause. If this topic has hit close to home, or you know of someone who has suffered in their dying days, then you might feel compelled to take action to help make this an alternative for residents here in Indiana. It is important to support this cause since it helps bring peace to those who suffer at the end of their lives. It also gives families the comfort of knowing that their loved ones will pass peacefully, and allows those who suffer the freedom of choice over their own lives and to die with dignity. Please visit deathwithdignity.org, where you are able to explore different options on how to get involved. I'm asking you today to visit the link for advocates that will instruct you on how to contact your local legislation and share why you support dying with dignity and why they should advocate for it as well. Thank you.